our speaker, who's a disabled activist, worked within the disability sector now for over 20 years. She serves on the steering group for disabled people against the cuts. You've heard her before. I'm sure she's got some fantastic things to say tonight. Ellen Clifford, over to you, Ellen.
Thanks, Steve. So the single most important thing that Deepak wants to get across tonight is the importance of not ending the lockdown too soon and until it's safe to do so. The pandemic has starkly exposed the inequalities that exist in society, whether through the disproportionate impact on Black and Asian minority ethnic communities, or through disabled people being told they won't get admitted to hospital, let alone receive treatment should they become ill. At a time that is enormously difficult for all of us, disabled activists and health workers have had to challenge NHS guidelines that sought to impose blanket rules about which groups of people are and aren't a priority for life-saving treatment. Over recent weeks, we've rightly heard about the scandalous situation where care home residents are being wiped out by COVID-19 and their workers put at serious risk through lack of PPE. An issue, though, that's still largely overlooked is the situation facing disabled people living in the community, with support workers coming in and out every day who are still without PPE. Now, I know I'm not alone in feeling beyond sick of my friends and my loved ones dying, of waiting every day to hear who's next and of what new hole is going to be punched into our hearts. We're losing some of our strongest campaigners. Last week, it was Manjeet Kaur, a Deepak member heavily involved in anti-racist work. This week, it was Sean McGovern, a staunch trade unionist with Unite, a good friend of mine and a key member of Deepak, who I fought alongside for the last 10 years. If lockdown ends too soon, we will lose many, many more, either through the virus or through overstretched NHS resources not being able to respond to the illnesses and pre-existing impairments that disabled people have. And the cost to our communities paid by the working class will be heavier still. At Deepak, we're also particularly concerned about disabled workers who are receiving letters now as I speak, telling them they need to continue to self-isolate at least to the end of June, while being pressured back into work by their employers. And who will gain from all of this? Not disabled people. COVID-19 has made it sharply apparent how little worth society places on our lives, and not the undervalued frontline workers upon whom the running of society is dependent. It's of course the bosses, who already have way more than their fair share, who will benefit. The right-wing media are doing their best to help them, with headlines comparing the end of lockdown to a return to freedom, to sunny walks in the park and day trips to the seaside. In reality, a premature end to lockdown will mean a return to the daily slog, surrounded by yet more death. And that's why we need to continue to focus on the fight for PPE, for testing, and to protect our communities. If we don't survive, there'll be no society for tomorrow, and fewer of us will be left to fight to make sure society doesn't go back to how it was before the pandemic, and that we have the building blocks we need for a fairer society, such as a social security system that is actually fit for purpose, such as enough social care support for all who need it, and for a fully inclusive education system. This is quite literally a fight for our lives. So it's now more important than ever that we unite, that we resist, and that we win. Solidarity.
Thanks so much for that, Ellen, and thanks for everything that you do, yourself personally, but those at Deepak, of course, as well, championing the rights of our disabled colleagues, but of course also fighting for our class on a much broader perspective. So well done. Thanks for that. Thanks for your message there. The message: disabled people in our community, of course, being cared for by those that are undervalued, underfunded, underpaid, and now without PPE as well. A crisis in our communities that needs resolving. Thanks very much for your kind words about Sean McGovern, a very close friend and comrade of mine as well, who tragically died yesterday. A great fighter for our disabled comrades.